The hardest part of any war isn't the first shot, it's what comes after it. The moment when the explosions fade, the headlines move on, and reality quietly sets in. Because war doesn't end when the enemy is pushed back. It doesn't end when the objective is captured. It continues in the silence that follows, where survival becomes a daily calculation. In the Strait of Hormuz, that reality becomes even more unforgiving. The world focuses on missiles, jets, and naval power, but those are only the opening moves. The real question begins after the island is taken, after the Marines plant their boots and secure the ground. What happens when the supplies start running low? What happens when the wounded begin to pile up and there's nowhere nearby to treat them? What happens when the fight isn't about winning anymore, but about lasting? That's the part nobody talks about, the part that doesn't make headlines, but decides everything. Because in this kind of war, victory isn't defined by who strikes first, but by who can still stand on day 10, day 20, and beyond. The landing itself is fast, overwhelming, and precise. Marines hit the island with force, clearing defenses and securing key positions within hours. On the surface, it looks like a complete success, but almost immediately, the situation begins to change. The intensity of combat burns through ammunition far faster than expected. Vehicles that were pushed to their limits start to break down. Generators that power communications and defenses begin to fail without maintenance. And then come the human costs. Injuries that can't be treated with basic field kits. Wounds that require surgical intervention, not just stabilization. By day 2, the cracks begin to show. By day 5, they widen. Supplies that were meant to last stretch thin, and every decision becomes a trade-off. Do you conserve ammo or maintain defense? Do you ration water or risk dehydration in extreme heat? There is no easy answer. And surrounding all of this is a harsh reality. There is no easy way in or out, no ports to dock ships, no roads to bring in reinforcements, just open water filled with threats. This is where victory begins to slip, not because of enemy fire, but because the system keeping the force alive starts to fail. This isn't a new problem. Decades ago, during the Falklands War, a similar situation unfolded with devastating consequences. The British forces had successfully landed troops and established a foothold. On paper, the operation was progressing, but everything changed in a single moment. A missile strike hit a supply ship carrying critical helicopters. Those helicopters weren't just transport, they were the backbone of the entire logistics chain. In seconds, that backbone was gone. Without them, moving supplies across difficult terrain became nearly impossible. Ammunition usage surged far beyond expectations, nearly 4 times what planners had predicted. Fuel couldn't reach the front lines efficiently. Wounded soldiers faced delays that cost lives. What started as a strong offensive began to stall, not because the enemy suddenly grew stronger, but because the ability to sustain the fight disappeared. It was a harsh lesson written in real consequences, and it proved something that military planners now understand clearly. You can win the battle and still lose the war if your logistics collapse. Now take that lesson and place it in Hormuz, where the environment is even more hostile and the margin for error is even smaller.
The Strait of Hormuz isn't just another battlefield. It's a logistical nightmare designed by geography and reinforced by strategy. The waters are narrow, heavily monitored, and filled with threats that don't need to be seen to be deadly. Naval mines sit beneath the surface, waiting for pressure, sound, or magnetic signatures to trigger them. Traditional ships can't simply sail through without risking catastrophic damage. Air transport offers some flexibility, but it comes with serious limitations. Aircraft like the MV-22 Osprey can move supplies quickly, but their carrying capacity is limited compared to what's actually needed to sustain a force on the ground. and that need is constant. A Marine battalion consumes enormous amounts of fuel, ammunition, food, and water every single day. Not over a week, not over a month, but daily. The problem compounds quickly. What works for an initial assault becomes completely insufficient for long-term survival. And with no established infrastructure on these islands, no stockpiles, no fallback options, every supply must come from outside. Every delivery becomes a risk. Every delay becomes dangerous. This isn't just a challenge, it's a ticking clock. And unless that clock is managed, the operation doesn't fail suddenly. It slowly breaks apart.
Solving this problem doesn't come down to a single piece of technology or one powerful ship. It comes from a system carefully designed to handle multiple layers of the same challenge. At the center of the operation is USS Boxer, a ship built for launching and sustaining air operations, controlling the battlefield from above. Alongside it operates USS Tripoli, focused heavily on aviation, pushing continuous sorties that maintain pressure and provide support where needed. But neither of these ships is designed to handle long-term sustainment alone. That responsibility shifts to two other vessels that rarely get attention. USS Portland and USS Comstock form the backbone of survival. Each one solves a different part of the equation. One ensures that personnel can be treated, supported, and kept alive. The other ensures that the equipment, fuel, and firepower needed to maintain control never run out. Together, they create a system that doesn't just win the initial fight, but sustains it long after the first wave is over. Remove any one of them, and the balance begins to collapse.
USS Portland operates as far more than a transport vessel. It functions as a fully capable medical facility positioned exactly where it's needed most. In an environment where time determines survival, distance becomes the enemy. A severely wounded Marine cannot afford hours of transport to reach a distant hospital. Every minute matters. Portland eliminates that delay entirely. Equipped with operating rooms, medical staff, and the capacity to handle multiple critical patients at once, it transforms the battlefield equation. Casualties can be evacuated quickly and treated almost immediately, dramatically increasing survival rates. But its role doesn't stop there. It also contributes to the defense of the entire operation. Using advanced laser systems, it can neutralize incoming surveillance drones before they can transmit targeting data. This capability shifts the cost dynamic dramatically. Instead of relying on expensive missile interceptors, it uses energy to eliminate threats at minimal cost. Without those drones, enemy forces lose visibility. Without visibility, their ability to strike effectively drops significantly. In a battlefield where information is as valuable as firepower, that advantage becomes critical.
USS Comstock plays a completely different but equally critical role. It is the engine that keeps the entire operation running. While other ships focus on combat or support, this one focuses on movement, the constant, uninterrupted flow of supplies. At the center of its capability is the LCAC, a hovercraft designed to overcome one of the biggest obstacles in naval warfare: mines. Instead of navigating through dangerous waters like traditional vessels, it rides on a cushion of air, effectively gliding above the surface. This allows it to bypass threats that would stop or destroy other ships. Each trip carries massive loads, up to 60 tons of cargo, enough to sustain large numbers of troops for extended periods. And it doesn't do this once or twice. It operates continuously, cycling back and forth between ship and shore. Fuel, ammunition, spare parts, everything needed to keep the force operational moves through this system. Without it, the timeline for failure becomes predictable. Supplies run out, equipment fails, and the entire mission begins to unravel. With it, the operation gains something far more powerful than firepower: endurance.
When everything is put together, a different picture of war begins to emerge. It's not defined by the opening strike or the most advanced weapons. It's defined by what happens after, by the ability to sustain, adapt, and continue under pressure. In Hormuz, that reality is impossible to ignore. The environment is unforgiving, the challenges are constant, and the margin for error is almost non-existent. But with the right system in place, those challenges can be managed, not eliminated, but controlled. And that control is what determines the outcome, because war, at its core, is a test of endurance. The side that can maintain its operations, keep its people alive, and continue supplying its forces gains an advantage that no single weapon can match. In the end, it's not the most visible elements that decide the result. It's the systems working behind the scenes, the ones ensuring that the fight can continue long after it should have ended. And that's the part most people never see, but it's the part that decides who ultimately wins.